Newcastle's 2025 summer transfer window has been one of the most turbulent ones I've seen in quite a while. It's been like watching one of those creepy pickup artists who secretly record random women and get rejected in less time than it takes for you to lose your house at the casino. That's right, this video is sponsored by State. Newcastle began their transfer endeavors by shooting for the moon and trying to get in contact with one of the hottest products on the market in Dean Howson. This was probably just a way to be shot down immediately and be happy with everything else they could settle for. Or so that was the plan, at least. Newcastle were in need of a new right-sided forward, and their ideal target was Brian Mbumo. The 25-year-old scored 20 times and assisted another 7 for Brentford. Not to mention, he would fit really well in Newcastle's system. Unfortunately, he preferred United. Rumors also said that Newcastle were interested in Mohamed Kudus, but he opted for Spurs. Nonetheless, the Magpies eventually got their guy in Anthony Elanga from Forest. Newcastle were also in need of a backup goalkeeper and were looking to Burnley's James Trafford, someone who had been on Newcastle's radar for a while now. They had their first bid rejected, then the second was accepted, but by the time Newcastle made another offer, City had come in to match the offer and steal Trafford away. Now, for this next part, we actually have to throw it all the way back to the summer transfer window of 2024. Star striker Alexander Isak was coming off a breakout campaign scoring 21, which earned him promises of a new contract from sporting director Amanda Staveley. However, Staveley left midway through the window and was replaced by Paul Mitchell. Mitchell had a different approach to Newcastle's finances and believed that the club's profit and sustainability problems couldn't possibly entertain an Isak contract extension because then other key players would demand similar wage increases. As a result, Alexander Isak's promised contract was shelved, with Mitchell citing that Isak still had 4 years on his contract and that when Newcastle were under less pressure from the Premier League PSR, the board could go back into negotiations with the Swede. While this made perfect sense, Newcastle's board still broke the golden rule. Never make a promise that you can't fulfill, especially one that you entertained prior for months on end. Isak was understandably furious about the whole situation. Anyone would be if they were promised more money and were told, nah, never mind actually. Nonetheless, Newcastle 1 year later returned to the Champions League, which gave them the money to give Alexander, who just came off an even better season in 24-25, a new contract. Unfortunately though, by that point, the window of opportunity had been closed shut, with an extra layer of superglue. As early as last spring, Alexander Isak reportedly notified the club and manager that he wanted to leave in the summer window. However, Isak still had 3 years left on his contract, so the only way he'd be able to leave is if Newcastle could find a proper replacement for him. And so the search begins. Ipswich forward Liam Delap scored almost 40% of his team's goals, which attracted heavy interest from Newcastle, especially with this release clause being only £30 million. Delap seemed to open at first, but then opted to sign with Chelsea because he would be reunited with former Man City teammate Cole Palmer. Newcastle then turned to Joao Super Senior Pedro, who scored 10 and assisted 6 to help Brighton finish 8th. It was said that talks between the club and players' camp were going well, with Pedro even open to the move. And then Chelsea changed his mind as well.
You can't keep getting away with it!
Next on Newcastle's very limited short list of forwards, 23-year-old Hugo Ekitike. After being thrown away like trash by PSG after a single year, Hugo would make the Parisian club live to regret that decision. For Frankfurt last season, he bagged 15 goals and assisted another 8. However, Liverpool, who were interested in Isak and were thinking of bringing him to the club, also saw the French striker as a target. Knowing this, Newcastle tried to snipe Hugo Ekitike, probably as a way to assert their dominance to Isak and his pursuers. The front office bid 81 million, Frankfurt rejects, Liverpool bid 95 million a week later, and Hugo Ekitike signs for the Reds. That could not have blown up in their faces worse. Oh, but it did, because at the beginning of August, as we mentioned before, Liverpool were interested in Isak, and they finally made a bid for Newcastle's best striker since Shearer, which was valued at almost 130 million. But having still not found any replacement for Isak, the front office rejected. And this pissed Isak off. He proceeded to go nuclear on social media afterward and said when promises are broken and trust is lost, the relationship can't continue. Basically, a declaration that he would never play for the club ever again. So now at this point, Newcastle had to act quick. They were starting to get desperate. So desperate that the Magpies were willing to bid over 80 million for Benjamin Šeško, who really didn't have any standout campaign for Leipzig last season. Either way, that bid was accepted by RB Leipzig, but so was one from Manchester United, who the striker preferred more. The search continued nonetheless. Brentford forward Yoane Wissa. The 28-year-old scored 19 times last season. Newcastle dropped 46 million for him, but Brentford rejected. And then most recently, we've started to see the front office panic buy, or at least attempt to. Newcastle bid almost 60 million for Jorgen Strand Larsen, and Wolves rejected it. Listen, this is directed to every club that Newcastle is currently trying to poach from. Ask for the most insane amounts of money, please. I need to see how far this goes. This shit is too funny. Anyways, going back to the Isak social media post, Newcastle responded to it a few hours later. And it wasn't really anything crazy, it just basically says that there was no guarantee from anyone that Isak could leave this summer, which, you know, totally fair. And the statement ended talking about how Isak is still considered a part of the family, and that he'll be welcomed back when he is ready to rejoin his teammates. Which, I'm gonna be real, I don't think he's coming back. This has already gone way out of hand to get to that point. Now, in my eyes and a lot of others, Isak is acting very immature, but I get why he's acting this way. People kind of forget how short a player's career is, especially in the age of intensity and congestion that is modern football. Alex right now is 25, at the peak of his career. He knows his ability deserves more success, and the club he's currently at can't provide that for him because of financial restrictions right now. I'd be frustrated too if I had to stick around in this purgatory knowing my valuation is so high that only a couple clubs can even reach out to me, and by the end of my contract, I'll be pushing 30. By the way, completely forgot to mention this, Newcastle's board is a complete mess right now. They just hired a new sporting director this summer, and also right now, they don't have a CEO. And I'd also probably go nuclear if in the build up to all of this, I had a whole contract dangled in front of my face like a pair of keys. Because again, Newcastle's board made the grave mistake of not fulfilling a promise they made. I don't care if the sporting director changed. I don't care if the finances don't allow it, right? You gotta think about this stuff before you make a promise like that, because at the end of the day, all you've done is lost someone's trust. And I've seen people defend the club and claim that Isak's not being grateful for everything the club did. Sure, I can agree with that to an extent, maybe not to the extent of people saying that they made him, because that's just fucking insane. But this is a two-way street, so by shelving that contract and doing all these other things, you are undermining a player that has also done a lot for you. Now, of course, this has been a very polarizing topic. It's a player versus the club, you know, it's the classic, right? But I'd say, for the most part, most of the takes aren't insane. Most of them, at least.
It really sort of hit me yesterday when we were about to line up, like, this fucking prick isn't turning up, and we're, you know, and I understand you don't care about the fans, right? Even though they literally worship you, and, you know, you were on the fucking bus a couple of fucking weeks ago celebrating as if you loved us all and telling the cameras whatnot, you know, oh, I love Newcastle, da 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 da. But, like, the Jota thing, you see the way Mo Salah is deeply affected by losing Jota.
Huh? But yeah, I've been kind of wanting to make a video about Newcastle's transfer window because of how funny it has been, and I can't wait to see what happens on deadline day. But what do you guys think about this whole situation, especially the Isak situation? Are you on Isak's side? Are you on Newcastle's side? Or are you just there to watch the fire burn? Which I am doing right now. But of course, though, a massive shout out to all our members, including Janos Balas, Lucar BB, Aresan, Brazilian Fury, Jeremiah Osu Ajimang, Valera, Django, Anazir Makalangkam, Alex Rod, Slider Kit, Taco Okafen, Kentra Gacha, Saint Terrence, Sylvia Citrus, Rashford Enthusiast, Cheesebait, Winter Gel, Finn Likes Rugby More, Davox, The Portugizer, Wise Orange, Olaperos, Von Fan, Lucian Von Kreuz, Gazegers Beshakivics, A Ghostly Owl, Coney Wolves, Lickstab, Mutanai, Sketchy Card, Apollo, Congo Jazz 1, German Sayu 7, Thrilling ADT 13, Los Milos, La James Braun, Vasinho, Jamie Vardy's 10th Red Bull, Nightwalker, Knapside, Money Cash Hose, Quantavious Pork, Lilia Lover, Stewed Monk, Tyler A. Davis, A Red Devil for Life, Tung 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 Sahur, Red Yellow, Kev C, Dominic Griffin, Kyler Krez, Mohammed Al Tanib, Nish, Patrick Barley, Rashford God 5, Raspberry Ale, and Unbroken Persona. If you'd like to become a member on the channel, there'll be a link down below and up in the annotations. You can follow my Twitter if you want, follow my Instagram if you like, follow my Twitch. I'll be doing some more Arsenal watch-alongs over the next couple of months, but until then, I'll see you guys.